Happy Independence, Bahamas. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Shasheena Rolle. As always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping news, the Bahamas is celebrating its 40th anniversary as an independent nation today. It was 40 years ago when the British Union Jack was lowered and the Bahamian flag of black, aquamarine, and gold was lifted, marking the birth of a nation. This independence holiday was ushered in with a grand cultural extravaganza and flag-raising ceremony at the Independence Park last night. Joan Davis-Rolle reports.
It was a kaleidoscope of colors as fireworks littered the skies, electrifying the dawn of the historic Independence Day celebrations. The annals of history will record that when the Bahamas turned 40 on Grand Bahama, literally thousands of Bahamians converged on the Independence Park. Their patriotism was in full bloom. The armed forces true to form as they added to the pomp and pageantry. Colors were explosive and national pride was at its peak. Simply put, the moment was described as magical.
What was magical to take note of the fact that the Ministry for Grand Bahama is a first, is historic. And to have the Minister for Grand Bahama, the Member of Parliament for Pine Ridge, a talented young Bahamian engineer and physician, do the inspection for the very first time. You know, this is something held traditionally for the Governor General. And to have him be the representative for the Queen and the Prime Minister last night and do the inspection was magical and historic.
Co-chairperson of the Grand Bahama Independence Committee, Peter Adderley, says not only was the government representative in top form, but the police and others who ensured that the Grand Bahama celebration was indeed grand.
Fireworks is just incredible. I mean, I love fireworks, and just a great job by those people who executed the fireworks. The fire department is to be commended. The traffic, air traffic control. It's just a great time to be Bahamian. A wonderful feeling to see that flag go up, to hear the national anthem, and then the fireworks. And so we look forward again to these celebrations just going on.
Through the arts, song, and dance, youngsters form a bridge which led the Bahamian culture at its best.
The show produced by Lisa Davis, Erica Ware, and Georgia Taylor was just magnificent. None of those persons were older than 16. I mean, wonderful dance routines, great music, great acts, and they were just pleased to be a part of history, and they did a spectacular job. They kept the audience alive. Our visitors were in shock. The crowd was pleased, and so we were just happy to have those young people through the Georgia School of Dance and Theater and Erica Ware's selection of students from throughout Grand Bahama to be a part of the entertainment. When you have a 1973 chairman, Sir Albert Miller at the time, giving back through his company Modelina to make these celebrations possible, it shows that the bridge to the future is truly here, and all of the young people that participated in last night's event is the journey being continued.
Prayers were then lifted for the nation, and the highlight coming with the reenactment of the most momentous occasion. Happy Independence, Bahamas. Joan Davis-Rolle, ZNS Network News.
Thanks, Joan. Well, as you know, today is Independence Day, and celebrations were expected to continue with two grand float parades and motorcades, one in Freeport and the other in West Grand Bahama. However, Mother Nature put a damper on those plans as officials announced the postponement of what was expected to be the biggest parade ever. Co-chairperson of the Grand Bahama Independence Committee, Peter Adderley.
because of the weather, those events have been postponed to a date to be announced. We're so thrilled that so many of the corporate citizens have prepared huge and beautiful floats, and so we would rather have them keep them under covers and wait for a better day, and so that they can show off. Hundreds and hundreds of church members were set to march this morning. Those two events we look forward to doing at a later date, and so we want folks to hold on to the investment that they've made in those floats, and the churches will be hearing from us.
Now, as the country celebrates its 40th birthday, many Bahamians are reflecting on the progress the country has made over the years. Tonight, these residents are taking a stroll down memory lane. They say it is a day they will certainly never forget.
I was the little girl in Topham Bay, Eleuthera at the time when Sir Lyndon made his first visit as the Prime Minister. The Premier, back then he was called, and I was the little girl, Sandra Major, who pinned the bouquet on Mr. Pinling. And I remember him giving me a hug and a kiss after that. And I don't remember if I washed the kiss off my face for a long time, but I remember going to sleep and my relatives saying that the kiss turned me into the Sleeping Beauty. And even from that very humble beginning, there was so much hope in young people and what we can become in an independent Bahamas. 40 years ago, I was a part of that march past that celebrated the coming down of the British flag and the hoisting of the Bahamian flag. So I was right there giving the salute in my little mini skirt and big afro, but it really was a proud moment for me. And I remember the following day we traveled to Exuma with the Prime Minister to take part in a fashion parade.
On that occasion, I happened to be the only journalist or person within the newsroom at the Freeport News. And so it meant providing coverage not only here on Grand Bahama but also on Nassau, because on the arrival of the Britannia with Prince Charles, I had to go to Nassau, shoot the photos of the arrival and him being welcomed by Prime Minister Pinling, get back here, and we had to put out a paper.
July the 10th, 1973, I was in Nassau. I saw the whole celebration. It was a beautiful moment for me. As you're aware, my birthday is July the 11th, so July the 10th and July the 11th is a celebration that just keep going on and on for me.
Now, as the country prepares for the next 40 years, a local pastor is admonishing Bahamians to reject the negative behavior that is hampering progressive development. He says mediocrity, greed, and spiritual impotence are the three deadly sins impacting this nation.
On the 40th
Reverend Dr. Keith Russell says while we celebrate, we must also evaluate. During an Independence Church service, he noted that there are some negative attitudes in the country that must be destroyed. The first is what he called the deadly sin of mediocrity.
It is mediocrity 40 years later that has building basketball gyms in our public schools, but we will never build a library. We want to raise the national average. It is mediocrity regarding God's redemptive cosmology that has a significant segment of the Bahamian church believing that the only battlefronts on which to fight has to do with homosexuality and gambling. It is mediocrity regarding our culture and our sense of self that has many of us still believing 40 years later that foreign is better.
He says mediocrity must die a sudden death, and greed should do too. He says greed has a stranglehold on nation building.
Whether one is a doctor or a lawyer or a maid or a plumber or a common laborer, one ought to have equal access to this country's resources. In this 40th year, greed
The pastor of First Baptist Church says another factor impacting the nation's forward march is spiritual impotence. He says based on the level of crime, there is a general disregard for human life. This, he says, is a serious concern, but that's not all.
We got ourselves educated. Then we entered into our successful careers and our affluent lifestyle, only to forget the God who brought us over. But I gotta tell you, such persons are contributing to the spiritual impotency of this nation, because many of them are the ones who wind up in leadership.
Shasheena. Stick with us, the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, back in just a moment.